up, guys? We are back for another episode of Monster Talks. Today, I'm in Tempe.
Yeah.
I'm here with Brandon, American Motors. You can rent me.
Yep.
What's up, Brandon? How's it going?
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. I appreciate you having us here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so tell me a little bit about this operation that we're at and how you got started on it.
Yeah, so ultimately the business model is Turo, and Turo is essentially the Airbnb of cars. Yeah. And so it's actually not that new of a concept. It's been around for quite a while, but it's really starting to gain a lot of momentum over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I got into the industry 3 years ago, almost to the day, and I actually got into the industry by being a customer. I had another business before this. I traveled a lot to LAX. I don't know if you've ever gotten a rental car at LAX, but
it's a pain in the ass.
It is a total disaster.
Yeah.
It takes forever to do. And so I had a meeting with a buddy. It was like around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I said, well, I'll have to like get in 3 or 4 hours earlier. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, I got to rent a car. And he said, why don't you just use Turo? And I'd never heard of Turo at the time. And I'm like, okay, what is Turo? And he's like, just download the app, put in your information, and you can rent other people's cars. And the idea seemed really foreign to me at the time, but, Airbnb had gained some traction. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's kind of like Airbnb. And so I went on the app, I put in my information. I ended up getting an M4 convertible for the same price I would have got my V6 Charger for. But most importantly, I get off the plane, I grab my bag, and as I'm waiting for my bag, I literally see the car through the window with a guy standing there on the curb holding the key. Now, you can't do this anymore, but at the time, this is what happened. And so I walked up to him, and I'm like, hey, is this the Turo car for Brandon? And he's like, yeah. And I go, dude, this can't be that simple. And he goes, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, am I supposed to take you somewhere? Or like, how does this work from here? And he goes, no, I'll get a ride. And so off he went. And in my head, fireworks went off. I'm thinking, okay, that was a completely different experience than what I'm used to. Completely different experience. And I go, I think this is going to do to rental car companies what Uber did to taxis. And as I dove into it even more, I realized that what makes it so unique is the customer experience is kind of going away nowadays. Right now, It's more like you stand in line. We don't care how long you stand in line. We don't care if it's uncomfortable. We don't care if you don't like it. You got to go through us. It is what it is. And we're seeing this a lot in our society, like the way we get treated on planes, the way we get treated when we go to a restaurant. It's just, we're becoming less and less customer service centric. And what made Uber so popular is I got to rate the driver and the driver got to rate me.
Yep.
And because of that, it held us accountable to a higher caliber of experience.
Yep.
And so I went home. I bought 5 cars immediately off of Craigslist, and I started trying it out while I had my other business. And it did good. So I bought more cars, and then it did get bought more cars, and then I hired somebody. And then 3 years later, here we are with just shy of 200 cars, second largest host in the country. And so that's been kind of my experience with Turo from start to finish.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations, first of all, because I know it's difficult, but seeing that vision, have you always been forward thinking, like where you're trying to see what's the next big thing?
Yeah, I learned really early in my career that I was 1, unemployable, and 2, an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so I got really into personal development and sales at a young age. And naturally you end up into creating a business, and more importantly than just creating a business, because there's a lot of people who have businesses nowadays, but my focus is on scaling businesses.
Yeah.
And so the last company I did that had a nice exit, and my plan is to do the same thing with this.
Nice. Yeah, I'm super intrigued with the whole Turo thing. I mean, as soon as we rented the last time that we came in, and like you say, the experience was great. The guy that dropped off the vehicle was super nice. We started talking to him. He told me about you. Here we are a few months later, right? That whole experience is just very intriguing to me. We are in the space because we do digital marketing as well. And the reason that I got into it was just because we thought that, with everything with Google, it holds people accountable with reviews. Those people that are bad get shipped off, and those that are doing good get lifted, so we like that whole thing. And here we are 12 years later in a digital marketing company, 14 employees. We continue to grow. We're expanding out to Scottsdale. And we believe just that technology and being able to do things faster, cheaper, smarter, better, I think is the key to go forward. But initially when I saw this, I was like, man, I'm just interested. I started looking at all your content online, just interested because me, myself too, as well as being as an entrepreneur, looking into getting into other things, was just really excited about just being able to talk about Turo, man. Because like you said, a lot of people don't know about it right now. Even, it's out there, but I don't think it's what it could be, right? And I think, Turo is not, I haven't seen Turo be as aggressive as like Airbnb and some of these other platforms like Verbo and some of these other platforms that are already advertising on TV. But, with people like you, you're coming in, you get it, you're creating your content, you're out there, you're active, you're scaling it, you're networking. I definitely see this growing. And I mean, seeing this operation, I mean, this is amazing.
There's a couple of sides, couple of opportunities that Turo has. One, obviously, it's built for customers that want a better experience when renting a car. But it also presents a unique opportunity for somebody to create a business within Turo.
Yeah.
And me and you, I'm sure, know the stats. Most businesses fail.
Yep.
And the main reason why I think most businesses fail is because you'll have somebody who's maybe very talented and an artist in a certain area, and then they'll go in and say, because of that, I'm going to start a business. And what ends up happening is now they're wearing all the different hats of a business, the marketing hat.
Yeah.
They're wearing the sales hat. They're wearing the administrative hat. They're wearing the hiring and the firing hat.
Yeah.
And then they end up spending no time doing what they did best.
Yeah.
That got them to do that. And so a unique situation that Turo gives people who want to start in the entrepreneurial game is they do the marketing for you, right? And it's just a matter of coming up with some of the systems yourself. And even with that, there's people like me who create courses for people to teach them how to do that. Because Turo's not a franchise where they hand you a playbook and say, here's what you got to do. And then when you go from 20 to 50 cars, here's what you got to do. And then when you go to 100 cars, here's what you got to do.
Yeah.
We're kind of left to our own devices to figure that stuff out.
No, I thought it was brilliant. You creating the mastermind. What inspired you to take it to that level? Is it?
Well, naturally, as I started to gain more cars and more traction, people always ask me a lot of the same questions. And what I realized is a lot of people are making the same mistakes on their own because they've isolated themselves on their own island. And with Turo, you can make some costly mistakes. You can't exactly go buy a Huracan and then put it on Turo, find out it doesn't work well for Turo, and go back to the bank and say, well, it's not really good on Turo, so can you take it back?
I've seen your content, and I think it's really interesting. I think it's brilliant. I think also, too, it's helpful. I mean, if you're looking to get in, if somebody looks at your content, they're going to be able to learn all the lessons you've already had to learn, over the last 3 years. I've seen some of your content, you talking about like, okay, this is flashy, but it's not going to bring you the dollars that the workhorses are going to bring you, and so, we were talking about that, and I just thought it was really interesting because, from a business standpoint, you probably think this is the route I want to go because it's going to be my top earner, right? But you providing that information, I think, gives people a lot of insight. So if anybody is interested in that, check out Brandon's content, man. It's golden. Like, you are giving away a lot of golden nuggets to people on that content.
Well, I also feel like for some people who have figured out certain things, you almost have a moral responsibility to teach other people how to do it, especially in a world nowadays where everybody wants to make a little money pretending to coach somebody how to do something that they're not doing on their own.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big fan of like, look, we have a location. You guys are here. Yeah. You see what's happening. This is open doors for anybody who wants to come. We have probably every day we have a host from Turo come in saying, I just wanted to see and check everything out. And so it gives an opportunity for everybody. I believe in frenemies. Yeah. All right. I've had a lot of hosts that have come in here. We even had a mastermind call. We do mastermind calls that are free every single Monday. And we just share ideas and grow with each other because a lot of this space is new. And so we have a big benefit of having a lot of people doing it simultaneously, so that when you touch the stove, I'd rather learn about you touching the stove than me touching the stove myself.
Oh, absolutely. I think, a lot of business owners, we automatically see competition as bad. Us as being a digital marketing agency, we have multiple roofers, multiple HVAC companies, and they all ask me the same question, like, hey, well, isn't that conflict of interest? Don't you believe this? And I say, on one hand, you can look at it that way, but on the other hand, we have a ton of data. We're able to help our roofers. We're able to help our doctors to be able to get them to the next level because we have a lot of data, and we're able to guide people from that data. So you can look at it either way, Other options are to go hire somebody in the Philippines or, somewhere else, and then be totally disconnected, get your accounts dinged, and before you know it, you're blocked on every platform, So that's a big thing that we're always pushing, is to be able to help. Like you said, we go around and, as we're coming over here, Carlos was like, hey, does Brandon know that this is his account is not, I can't tag his account. So little things like that we can help. We're always digging into little things and trying to help. Like you said, it's almost our moral responsibility to just help as we go along that route. And we do that everywhere I go. I find myself, if I'm in Austin, if I'm in LA, I go to a restaurant, I'm like, this is killing me on the reviews. Like, your link didn't work. I'm like, can I talk to the owner? I'm like trying to educate and try to tell people, because of that, because, all of those little things, they help take our businesses to the next level. And,
well, if somebody was to hire somebody
yeah,
that does what you do full time, like in their business,
yeah,
what would that cost?
I would say probably, if you're going to go 2-man operation, you're going to go over 100,000 for sure. And if you're in Scottsdale, Tempe area, you're probably going to be at 120, 150.
And so most people, most businesses aren't going to be able to afford that, let alone they still got to manage it once they have it. So I'm a big fan of, like, figure out what you do really, really well, and figure out how to do that most of the time. And then the other stuff that you are either blind to or not really good at, find a coach, find a mentor, find a professional, and let them do what they do.
I think the hard part about it, Brendan, is a lot of the time it's so hard to figure out who the hell is good, There's so many bullshitters out there. I recently hired a tax strategist. I was telling you when we talked over the phone, and it's been up and down, man. You hear shit from one guy, you hear things from different people, and it's just like, it's all over the place. So you're like, who do I trust? You almost have to spend money and learn those lessons the hard way in some cases, right? But if you do have some trusted sources, it's really good. When that's one of the things that I've been in-house. I worked for a large automotive aftermarket company where I was the marketing director. I had people to work under me, and that's about what we would pay. We were probably about 120, 130, that it cost to be able to have us on payroll. And there's no way that we could handle what we handle at MonsterLink with 14 people, because you have people that are all they do is web dev. All they do is video. And so it's organized and it's structured a little bit better. So then we can bring back costs to now that same work, we can get it done for $50,000 a year, or you have those people that don't know anything and they say, okay, where should I start? I only have $2,000. Where should I start? And then we say, okay, let's do the foundational work. Let's get you a Google My Business listing. Let's get you up on the web. Let's get you a simple splash page. That way you're there. And then you can, like you say, you go out and you do what you're good at and you start growing your business from there. So I think those are the things that are really tough in today's world, because most of our owners, they're not technical. They don't come from a technical background, So that's difficult for a lot of people. So that's how we have to educate. And I think what you're doing with Turo is very similar, because you're showing people how to navigate that system without, going through all of your money, right? And so that's one of the things that we're out here trying to do as well in Scottsdale, is duplicate the success that we've done in El Paso. But it takes so long, man, because you got to build that trust. You build these relationships one at a time. And then after 10, 12 years, it starts to, now we don't do any hard marketing. If you look at our social media page, it's just stuff that's entertaining people and educating people. You're not ever going to go to our site and find, like, we do websites. Like, we don't do any of that crap. Because we're trying to sell the experience rather than sell what we do, right? So I think those things are important, but it's just, the game is changing all the, you know, the technology is coming in, disrupting a lot of different industries. For us, I mean, we love it. We're techies. Carlos and I started MonsterLink 12 years ago, or he was with me since day one. He also is in IT, so we do IT. So everything just goes together with the technology and what we do with stuff. But I think now with what's happening with Turo, I'm very fascinated. So when I saw your page, I'm like, man, this is really interesting. Like, you know, like I'm trying to get into, obviously, if I'm doing tax strategies, you're looking at like property investments and how to do short-term rentals, long-term rentals and stuff like that. But it's really interesting to me how to manage something like this, man, like what you've built. Like, it's amazing. Like this garage, having all these cars, having the system where you got the keys in the front. How have you built those systems over time? Are you working with the team? Or you're just constantly always breaking that stuff and reinventing stuff?
Yeah, so I like to, it's kind of like a bubble. You know, most people in Turo will get to about 20 cars because that's all they can manage on their own. And
what's the challenge at that point, Brandon, that you think most people go through?
Time.
Okay.
Yeah, they just simply there's not enough time in the day to manage all the cars that they have. And they haven't really come up with systems. They kind of just bounce against the wall as they're needed.
Yeah.
And so just like you stated, systems and tools are the necessary ingredient for you to scale a business.
Absolutely.
And so once you get to 20 cars, you have to realize, okay, where's my stress points?
Yeah.
Where can I save 5 minutes here? Where can I shave 10 minutes off there?
Yeah.
How can I automate this? How can I structure this so that I'm not spending 15 minutes looking for a key when it could be labeled? Like, there's so many different things, and a lot of which you just don't find until you either have a coach that's been through it before, or you go through the stress yourself, and you figure out how to self-correct. See, a lot of people they don't self-correct. They'll just do the same nonsensical thing over and over again, not realizing, oh, I can not do this by XYZ.
Absolutely.
And
I see.
So you get big until you stress, right? And then you pull back a little bit to fix those things so that you can scale to the next level, and then you grow again. And we've probably gone through this bubble 4 times in this business. The last business that I had was a marketing company for ADT security, and I grew that to 8 offices in 5 states with 300 sales reps. So I figure out how to do something, not to make money. Like, I don't have a Huracan to make money on a Huracan. I have a Huracan to prove that a Huracan can make money so that I can buy more Huracans. You know, a lot of people know me for having exotic cars, but there's also the ones that know me for having 60 Fiat 500s because I keep a P&L for every single individual car. And I do that so I can understand, okay, which cars work, which cars don't. And
what is it about the Fiats? Because I saw your video on you talking about the Fiat and how that's your car of choice.
Yeah.
What is it about that vehicle?
It's the highest ROI. It's just the highest ROI car. You get it for a good price. It's cheap to maintain. It's a high utilization. It's out most of the time. And they're readily available.
How did you develop the skills on like auditing, going into auctions and going in and that thing? Because I seen you working on that and I'm like, man, that's really interesting. Like, how did you just do it by learning, just by doing it, or you had somebody coaching? Or
yeah, I mean, back to the conversation of us hiring professionals for things. I've spent a couple of decades being pretty hard-headed and just figuring stuff out on my own.
Yeah.
And there's positives to that, but there's also negatives. The positive is a lot of things I've figured out how to do, and I can either decide to keep doing them or delegate them off to somebody else, but at least I'm conscious of knowing exactly how to fix them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the same principles that applied to the last business that I was in is this. They're just basic principles that work for running a good business. And knowing your numbers is vital for every business.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you're flying a jumbo jet and none of the buttons are labeled and you're trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, the biggest mistake that people will make in Turo is they'll go out and they'll buy a car that has a payment of $1,000 a month and they're making $1,500 on Turo, so they think they're winning.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that the car is depreciating. Eventually something's going to happen to the car and it's going to have to be maintenance. You've got registration, you've got insurance, you've got an accident that could happen, and then you've got to pay a deductible to fix it.
Yeah.
So there's experience, right? Knowing your numbers, resilience. You know, most people who try to become an entrepreneur, I think, run into their first wall and go, this isn't for me. You know, and I think the really successful entrepreneurs, they just run through walls all day. It's just what I've probably stomped on 15 fires this morning.
Yeah.
It's just part of
Yeah.
running a business.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've gone through my fair share of battles and ups and downs and health issues and coming back from that and getting back on. How do you stay on top of that? Like I've seen you recently posted a video doing the gym work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that vital part of
I'll give you a quick little story. In high school, I was really into football. I got a scholarship for BYU. I wanted to be a running back in the NFL. That was like my complete identity. It's what I was totally obsessed with it. Nothing else really mattered. Everything else was just to get me there. And I ended up getting hurt my first year in college. I lost my scholarship. I couldn't play football anymore. And a couple of months later, I ended up living in my mom's car in a gym parking lot in Orem, Utah. And I was really pissed off at the world. I was blame throwing everywhere. I completely lost my identity and had no idea how to replace it. I wasn't equipped with any tools for life, right? I was lost. And a guy at the gym gave me, one of those little DVD players that they used to have where you put the DVD in it and it's got a screen in it?
Yeah.
He goes, "Hey, have you ever seen The Secret?" And I said, "No, I've never even heard of that." And he said, "Well, I'm going to give you this and you need to go watch it tonight." So I ended up watching it. And really that was day one of my life right there, of understanding that if I'm going to be successful in life, I have to master this. I have to master my body. I have to master my relationships with people, communication, and I have to master my relationship with a higher power. Yeah. And so I'm really big on the 4 pillars of faith, fellowship, fitness, and finance, right? In that order. And so I've lived by that. I've done the entrepreneurial thing where I lived a completely unbalanced life, where I put my family to the side, I put my body to the side, I put my relationship with God to the side, and I was just all about business. And being one-sided will catch up to you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like that saying, it doesn't catch up to you till it catches up to you, and it always catches up to you. Well, recently I've learned to be more balanced. Yeah. And ultimately, you just end up getting ahead by being more balanced. But I had the lie in my head that it was going to put me behind. Somebody else was going to overcome me because I wasn't spending all my time on my business.
Absolutely. No, that's beautiful. And I'm kind of right now, it's tripping me out because The Secret was actually one of the reasons why I got out. Like I was going through a separation, watched The Secret. I was watching Ip Man Kung Fu movies. And that really was what woke me up. And that was the first day I decided I'm going to write down all my goals. And the first book I read was Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. That was my very first book. Woke me up. And from there, I'm like 120 titles in now.
Yeah. So I've read that book 4 times.
Yes.
I'm reading the book right now. You can go onto my stories.
You still
on my
learn
Instagram.
shit, right? You still learn shit.
Still reading stuff.
Yeah.
I use the same book.
Yeah.
So I've read the same, like not the same Think and Grow Rich, but like the same exact book.
Yeah.
I've highlighted new stuff every single time I'm looking through it.
It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And really what it is it's Andrew Carnegie's vision of The Secret through Napoleon Hill's eyes. Right. And I've read a lot of books that talk about The Secret, but I would encourage anybody listening to this to go watch it with an open mind, because if you do, it literally will become day one of your life.
Yeah, it does.
It was for me.
It's a trip. When you put that energy out there to the world, here we are. I mean, when we first came in, we came in to Scottsdale. We just had gotten our first client. We're working with a medical office here. And I told the guys, like, we had rented an Airbnb. I'm like, we're talking and we're like, you know what, we should start creating some content while we're down here, start a page here. Let's start doing that stuff. Let's rent a car. That's how the whole thing came about. The guy came over and I talked to Angela. I'm like, we've got to meet that guy. Like, we're going to meet that guy. We're going to talk to him. Let me prepare myself. Let's continue to build our page up. Let's continue to do that. On the way back, we're like, you know what, we need a sprinter, because when we're driving, we need to be driving around. We need this for our gear. We got the sprinter. Then next thing you know, we're here. So it's just like amazing how things start to line up when you put that energy out there in the world, and you have that positivity. You show up to work every day to put in that work, and things start to pay off, man. And that's really how we've been building it. So it's cool that this energy has brought us here today. But I appreciate you taking the time to allow us to do this. Also, I was going to ask you on something that you had mentioned. You had mentioned about, you had called it like that you you grow it to its max, and then you figure out what you pull back a little bit, figure out what. And right now I'm reading Elon Musk's new book. I don't know if you've read it, but it's a really good book. And he talks about like how he would go into the factories and just rip things apart. And if something wasn't right, he changed things, fired people on the spot. I mean, he was changing things on the spot. And I think that's what made him great, is that he was not satisfied. He continued to tinker with things until it got, we got it right. And so I'm very inspired by that. What do you think about the whole new thing with this whole Cybertruck? I heard your video on the new vehicles, the electric power vehicles, that you don't like them much just because of the whole thing. But what's your thought process on the whole Cybertruck?
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of electric cars just because of the way the P&L shapes up.
Yeah.
For them, and because renting cars, you could get an electric car, have it go out to a guest in a couple hours, and it's a completely empty battery. So now you have to increase the gap between bookings. There's just where do they charge it? They communicate more because they're not familiar with charging it, so it takes up more time. So financially for Turo, they're not the best. Personally, driving cars, I don't like electric cars because I like the sound of an engine.
Yeah.
Like you may be able to go. We have a white Tesla Plaid, and we have a white Huracan.
Yeah.
Which one would you rather drive?
Yeah, no. That's why I rented this.
So I'm not a huge fan of electric cars for that reason. I am a huge fan of Elon Musk. I think, anybody who's an entrepreneur, you have to respect Elon Musk.
Absolutely.
And what he's accomplished, what he's done, what he stands for. So I've always loved him, and just recently watching that thing that went viral with him on Disney, and so hopefully that answers your questions about it.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested just because I know. I mean, you're around cars all day, so I'm like always interested. Like, what's the next move? Do you think we're eventually going to get off of gas powered vehicles and go fully electric?
I mean, if everything stayed the same right now, it's just not possible. It's just not possible. Like, the grid won't sustain it.
Yeah.
They talk about semi trucks getting on it, and I mean, it's just not sustainable.
Isn't there aren't they saying that we're going to be off by like 2030? The government said by that time.
Well, I think it's California that's mandating that all
gotcha.
new cars sold in California 2030 going forward have to be all electric.
Gotcha.
But they're also the same state that has rolling blackouts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And are requiring solar and all this because their grid just can't even keep track of what they have right now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how cars would go, but I don't think that electric cars will completely take over gasoline engines in our lifetime. I really don't. It's just my personal opinion, though.
Yeah. Can you move the mic a little bit?
Yeah.
Thanks, Carlos.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So I'm just curious about that myself. Going in, I guess I think a lot of buyers today, they're like, should I go electric? Are they, are they going to take away all the gas? Because people ask me, like, that's never going to happen. How would that happen? I think the way they would do that is obviously if you start pulling back on the amount of gas stations available and they pick the price up of gas, and then people just say, screw this, it's too expensive, right? I think that would probably be the only way. But yeah, it's going to be really hard. And some of us, that grew up with the gas powered vehicle like to hear the engine. It's going to be even harder to get off of gas-powered vehicles. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with that. But the design of the new Cybertruck, you don't like it?
No.
He went too far to...
It's not a truck. I'm surprised that I think they got a lot of pre-orders on it because it was $100.
Yeah.
And so everybody just wanted to be in line and post on it. Oh, I got an order on the Cybertruck, but... I'm not a fan. It's personal preference.
What would be your vehicle of choice? If you can have any vehicle.
My favorite car in here is the Z06 Corvette. It's that orange Z06 Corvette. You guys should.
Why is it? Is it the handling on that?
It's just an all-around amazing machine. 650 horse, 650 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
It's a convertible. It's got Apple CarPlay. It goes when you want it to go. It stops when you want it to stop. It turns sharp. It's just... For me, it's an American car. I just check all the boxes.
Do you do SEMA?
I don't.
You don't do SEMA? You've never been to SEMA?
I've been a couple of times, but it's not a regular thing that I do.
Yeah. One time I went out. I used to go to SEMA because I worked at the automotive aftermarket. A company that I used to work for used to allow us to go out every year. And just seeing the Corvette, the Z06 particular, on the track, I mean, you see that compared to some of the, you know, put it next to the Camaro, put it next to, and that thing hugs the corners, man. Like it performs really well.
Yeah. Great track car. And they wanted to make that even better, which is why they said we can't compete with the mid-engine cars. We're going to have to eventually scrap this design and move the engine backwards. So they did that this year. You probably see my video. I'm not a big fan of the first. I'm not a big fan of the first generation of the C8. Yeah. But hopefully they perfect it and get a few things.
You think they're going to move the engine back again? And
no, I have a YouTube video on it. If you go to our You Can Rent Me,
I'm going to check that out.
But I bashed it pretty hard. Okay. Just not a fan of the design. I think they took away a lot of things that purists just aren't going to like.
How about that middle console? That middle console as like
it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I first got in one 2 months ago. It's been out for years, but I just got in one 2 months ago. I took it home and back, and I told Brandon, our videographer, I said, we got to make a video on this because I hate this car.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely, and this is not coming from hate for Chevy or Corvettes, because I love Corvettes, and maybe it's because I love the C7 so much that I don't like it, but I went through a lot of like design things that just really don't make any sense.
Are you more of a Chevy guy or more Ford? I mean, or Dodge?
Chevy and Dodge, yeah.
I like the Dodge too.
Yeah.
I have a Dodge Charger.
Yeah.
That's what I drive in. I love that vehicle. I think because of the space inside, I really like it. So, but the other thing I was going to ask you is, like everything that you're talking about with your whole experience with Turo and things, what are the major things that you've learned like out of this whole experience?
There's a lot. I mean, like I said, you have basic general business knowledge that you'll learn from running another business, but then you go into a space that's completely different. Like I'll give you an example. The last business that I was in was a sales organization. So you recruit people and those people sell things.
Yeah.
Right. So I never had any debt. Everything was just paid off, and I wanted to grow the business. I just got to find more people. And then you move into this space and it's like, okay, if I want to find more business, I got to get more cars. Yeah. And cars are expensive. I mean, we have close to $10 million in inventory into this roof.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a difficult thing to get. So in business, there's only two ways you can grow. Only two. You either get more leads or customers, same thing, or you get more efficient with the leads that you have. Those are the only two ways that you can grow. The smart people are doing both simultaneously and thinking about scaling things, which is what I'm trying to do here. So there's maybe one or two, three at most other people that are trying to do what I'm trying to do. So, that bubble, you just grow until you're just uncomfortable and you're having problems with things, and then you fix things.
Yeah.
And you just understand that it's part of the scaling process as you're growing. Like my purpose is to grow until I'm uncomfortable. All right, well, how do I get more comfortable? Are you a fan of Tim Grover?
No, I haven't.
Do you know who he is?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so he was Kobe Bryant's trainer, Michael Jordan's trainer.
Yeah.
So he
heard of him, but I've seen some of his little clips on social media.
There's a lot of those. Yeah. So he has a saying: when you lose, stay down. Stay down. So when I talk about expanding that bubble and then coming back, the coming back is, okay, something's not working, and it's not working with this number of cars, so it most definitely is not going to work with this number of cars. I got to figure out a system for this. I got to figure out a process for this. I got to figure out a person that can take this over. Like something's got to change.
Yeah.
And so this is something that as entrepreneurs, we've got to do. I think you have one group of entrepreneurs that just says, I'm just going to do what I got to do to get by, to live the life that I want to live. And then you have another smaller group of just psycho entrepreneurs that are like, I'm going to push the limit at every turn to figure out what I'm truly capable of.
Yeah.
And
which are you?
I would love to say I'm in this category.
Yeah.
But you also got to understand that being in that category is expensive.
Absolutely.
And when I say expensive, I'm not talking about financially.
Yeah.
It's expensive in long nights.
Yeah.
It's expensive as in people betray you. Yeah. It's expensive as in you get hit with a loss here that's really hard, where you feel like there's no way to overcome it and you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So you have to be completely vested to be one of these people.
That's the Elon Musk.
And that's why I respect Elon, because look, we see some of these people like Elon Musk, even Donald Trump, who else? The Apple guy, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Like, we look at all these people and we go, oh wow, they just had all this success. But if you read their books and you listen to some of the stories of things that they went through, you realize that no, like, they were just simply willing to weather any storm to get to where they needed to go.
Oh man, that sets me on fire. I tell the guys all the time, whenever I have a client, they're like, "Oh, we've been 5 months. Why ain't I rich and successful?" I'm like, man, here, let me get you a book to read. These are doctors. These are people that are highly educated, and these are the questions that they're asking me. It's like blowing my mind.
Highly educated in certain things.
Yeah, in medicine.
Not in street smarts.
Yeah.
And so, look, I knocked doors for 12 years until I started my business.
Same here, yeah.
12 years I knocked on doors. 6 days a week, 8 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
I knocked on doors. So the prerequisite for becoming a great entrepreneur is 1, personal development, 2, communication skills, which ultimately leads you into sales. Like, you sales and personal development are the backbone for great entrepreneurs.
What do you do other than reading books to get that education?
So I read 20 pages a day. I post it on my wall every day. I read 20 pages a day.
Nice.
It's non-negotiable. So I was in, do you know who Andy Elliott is?
Yes. Yeah, so, I saw him on your page.
So I went to Andy Elliott's
that was badass, though,
thing yesterday, and then I ended up going to his house and spending like 4 hours with him. And I still had 20 pages to read. I still had a workout to do because I'm on phase 1 of 75 hard, or phase 3 of 75 hard. And I still had a cold plunge to do. So I was up till 1:30 in the morning getting all that stuff done. So discipline.
Absolutely.
Like, you have to have discipline to do things. Too many people now are like, oh, well, I can do that tomorrow. Or why put off for tomorrow what can be done today? Like, you have to be now. You have to get it done. We can't procrastinate in business.
Do you think, I know you mentioned that you played football. You think that played a lot of role into to the discipline that because I played sports. I played baseball as well. And, that knowing how to build a team, knowing to have that discipline. Our coach, we would lose, come back, run, keep running until I tell you to stop, that kind of stuff.
So I've probably done at least 50,000 interviews for sales guys, at least in the career that I've had. This is the question that I ask them. Would you consider yourself to be a competitive person? That's the resume. I don't care what you write on here. Would you consider yourself a competitive person? If so, why? Okay, well, what about when this happens? All right, well, where did you get that from? All right, well, are you competitive only when you're around other people, or are you competitive with yourself when you're by yourself? Right? Like, I can tell you exactly how your life is going to play out based on your competitive nature. So football was my life. I lost it, and then I had to pivot into business. Like, this is where you take your competitive nature into the real world.
Yeah.
It's business.
It allows us to keep being athletes, right?
Yeah.
In this world. But I also know you mentioned cold plunges. What got you into cold plunging?
So I'm a big fan of Andy Frisella with First Form, and I've listened to his podcast. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur and you haven't listened to Real AF or MF CEO Project, go back and listen to it. It's better than a college education when it comes to business, just listening to a free podcast. And so I listened to that. He started something called 75 Hard, which is basically a list of tasks that you've got to do 75 days in a row. If you miss one task for one of those days, you have to start all over. Are you familiar with it?
I've heard of his podcast.
Okay.
But I haven't heard of the program.
All right.
Yeah.
So part of 75 Hard is subsequent phases. There's 3. And if you do 75 Hard and all 3 phases in a calendar year, it's called Live Hard. So I'm on phase 3, which is the last phase for Live Hard this year. And phase 1 and phase 3, every day you have to do a cold plunge. I hate it.
Torture.
I hate it. Like, it's mental turmoil before you go into the water. It's physical turmoil once you're in the water. I hate it, but I'm willing to do the things that I hate to master discipline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was telling the guys, I don't have my cold plunge here, so I'm jumping in the pool, man, frozen, to do it because I've recently started doing the cold plunge. I've started doing breath work, grounding. I have my my hydrogen water here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was from Gary Brecka. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have heard the name, yeah.
Yeah, Gary Brecka. He helped Dana White, and he's done stuff like that. I mentioned him on the Lost podcast, but I've been just getting deep into it. I got a methylation test done and just trying to understand a little bit because I'm always trying to optimize my performance, man. I was that guy, my teens, my 20s, my 30s. I did not get no sleep. I probably slept like 4 hours a night, 5 hours tops. And then I'd be right back at it because that's what it took for me to get where I would have to do a full-time job. I was a marketing director, then I was establishing my own company. That's the way I was able to get here. And I always tell guys, if you're looking to start your business, you have zero money, man, keep your full-time job. Start hustling on the side. Start formulating your plan, man. But don't go at it with no money. You're going to need a little bit of money to grow, So that's been my thing. And then recently, just going through ups and downs with health stuff, man, with stress. I mean, you name it. I really had to go back and reformulate, come back and just start to, evaluate like what things can I do,
How has the cold plunge affected your stress levels?
I think it's like as soon as you get out, you notice the difference. It's like adrenaline. You feel good. You want to tell somebody about it. You jump out and you're all smiles. So right off the bat, just that I know like it has an impact. People always ask me like, does water help? Like it's just little incremental changes that overall equal just a better life, man. Just more clear-headed, come in with more energy, all of those things. So I can't say like, I started like looking into mushrooms and stuff like that, like all sorts of shit, just to, I started doing, doing the fasting thing. I've tried all sorts of shit, so that's been a big part of my journey. But overall, I think it equals after you do that, you help out. And then little by little, I was with my barber the other day. I know you were getting your haircut and stuff. I was with my barber and I'm always talking to my barber. I go in and he has a book. He's like, it's Atomic Habits. He's like, have you read this book? I'm like, I haven't gotten around to it, but it's on my reading list.
James Clear.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, man, it's great. I'm like, shit, you read books? He's like, you're the one that got me into reading books. I was like, that's awesome, man. Like just having that impact, it starts to have that impact around people. These guys are younger guys. And I'm always trying to preach to them and stuff, I'm in my 40s now. These guys, they're fresh, man, and they're hungry, and I'm trying to help them to help them to get to their goals and stuff like that. So, but all of that, I think, it's almost, like you said, it's almost like a duty you have to give back. So I also come from a martial arts background and stuff. I do martial arts. I did jiu-jitsu, did some stand-up, some Wing Chun, started getting into doing stuff like that. So that as well has been part of like bringing all this together. It was like the secret manifesting stuff, getting out there, putting in the work, getting your ass kicked a lot of times, and then just getting up and keep on moving forward and making you stronger.
You're a growth junkie.
Yeah, I am. And so
you're a growth junkie.
I love it, man.
It's a good quality to have.
Yeah.
It's
kind of annoying for the girls I've been with, but yeah.
Well, then they're just not the right ones for you. Yeah. So, and I'm sure you figured that out.
Yeah.
So it's just, it takes a special, I've been with my wife for 15 years.
Yeah. And
it takes somebody special to be, 4 days out of the week, I leave the house before they get up and I come home after they're asleep.
Yeah.
And so it takes a certain amount of support for somebody to recognize that she understands it.
Yeah.
I like how Grant Cardone, I don't know if you like Grant Cardone.
Yeah, I love Grant Cardone.
Yeah. He said to his wife before he got married, he said, hey, look, there's literally nothing I won't do for you. Like, I will give you everything. I'll give you a great life. I'll be like, except one thing. I won't give up my dream.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to find somebody like that.
Yeah.
And like you, I went through a couple of really bad relationships, but I believe God does everything for you, not to you. Yeah. So that you can, I appreciate my wife now because I've seen the bad, and it's created a great relationship for us. And we actively work on our relationship together and and do things to build it. So anything that's a priority to you, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, no, and I
your
think
priority is to grow. And so all these things that you're mentioning that you're doing, that you're trying, is because you're trying to find the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And eventually you find something that works, See, other people, they're finding, what drug can I take? What's the best strain of weed to smoke, right? What's the easiest job I can go do, right? And they think that that's the pursuit of happiness, right? Or like a lot of the younger generation now, they're thinking, what can I do to make the most money? The easy way. Right? And God did something really cool to me, right? He made me very poor. And then in my 20s, he gave me a ton of money. I could do anything I wanted in my 20s. I had a warehouse like this full of exotic cars that weren't for rent. They were mine, right? And then he took it all away from me. All of it. So I learned in my 20s that money is something that comes and it goes.
Yeah.
True happiness is finding that balance between those things that I talked about, those 4 pillars, and just knowing every day that I'm a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. That's true happiness.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Yeah. I think at the point of my life, that's what I'm realizing too. Like, I didn't have things early on, but over the years, I've been able to do whatever I want now. And you're like, wait a minute, it's still not happiness, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to find it within, and that's what I've been on that journey. And thankfully now I have my family now, and I think we're at a lot better place too. So, my kids, spending time with my kids. I have a son in college now too, so spending time helping them grow has been fulfilling for me as well too. So,
help is the key word.
Yeah.
Like anybody who has a really good business, they figured out a good way to help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you have a giver's heart and a helper's heart, you're naturally going to find a good business, or you're going to take a business and create something big out of it, because your customers see right through you. Like when I did door-to-door sales, I did really, really good.
Yeah.
Because I actually loved and cared the people that I was.
Yeah, people can feel that energy, right?
Yeah, I was like hey, you should get a smoke detector. And they're like, oh, cool. Do you sell smoke? No, we don't sell smoke detectors. It's just, you guys got to have a smoke detector.
Yeah.
Right? You got to have a motion light. Oh, you sell motion lights? No, but you got to have a motion light out here. Here's an app where you can keep track of crime and sex offenders in your neighborhood, because I saw you had kids.
Yeah.
And it's just, some people connect with people who care, right?
Yeah.
And how many times in your social media a day do you get people saying, oh, I can help you with this. Yeah. Oh, I can help you with that. Oh, I can help you.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's annoying.
I tell people that too. Like, always bring something to the table, man. Don't ask for shit. Like, offer help. Gary Vaynerchuk, give, jab, 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 cross, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people miss that. People right off the bat, they didn't even say, hi, how are you? Just like, hey, man, I'm looking to see if you can post my video for me on your page. And it's like, man, like.
It's entitlement.
Yeah.
It's entitlement.
Those are the people never get answered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but so somebody trying to get into this whole Turo thing, man, what would you think would be the best way to do it? Like for all the people that are coming to your mastermind, like that's
we do live events here, like literally where we're sitting right now. We do live events. Our next one is going to be on January 6th, 2024, at 11 o'clock here at our headquarters. They're completely free. And last time we did 0 advertising, like not even $1 of advertising, and 100 people showed up from all over the country.
That's awesome.
And so plug into that. We've got a free call every Monday that we do. Plug into that. We have our own app called Turo Courses. It's also on the Google Play Store.
Oh, that's awesome.
We do have a course that I filmed. I poured my heart into it. There's literally no stone left unturned.
That's badass.
On how to do Turo. That's also on our website. You can rent me, or on their app, you can buy it. Learn from other people's mistakes. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, oh, there's a lot of people who have Turo courses. Like, why would I get your course? And I go, I wouldn't just get my course. Like, there's other people who are crushing it in Turo. Get all of them.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be the best, get a few nuggets from me, get a few nuggets from them. Go onto YouTube and get some free nuggets with a word of caution. Like, are they a reliable source?
Yeah.
Do they have a building that you can walk into?
Yeah.
Like, do they have a phone number you can call? Do they have reviews that you can go on to?
I mean, the thing that caught my attention when you said the second largest Turo dealer in the United States, I mean, that was big. That's the same way when I tell my clients, I do videos like how to hire a marketing team. Like, here are the top 5 things you need to think out. Like, first of all, if you're hiring them for social media, how are they doing on their social media? It's plain and simple, right? So like you said, when people say, why should I get your courses? Well, I am the second largest on Turo. Like, that right off the bat speaks volumes, right? So I think that's big. I try to do that. Like, if I'm a mechanic and I show up with a broken down car, am I going to put you to fix my car? It's like, no,
Yeah,
right?
good point.
Yeah, but owners do that a lot of the time. They had a much flashier, they came in suits and all buttoned up, and, they had a nice presentation. I'm like, yeah, but look at the product. Look, who are their clients? On search engine optimization, where are they on Google? Are they number one in their category? Who are their clients? Are they number one in their category?
So like you said at the beginning of this, we're in a digital era where you either have or you don't have receipts.
Yeah.
And so, you go onto Google Maps and you see close to 2,000 reviews with a 4.9 rating.
That's amazing.
You go on to Turo, it's a 5.0 rating with close to 15,000 trips. So, like, the proof is there. And so if you really wanted to start in a business, the dumb thing to do would be, let me go off on my own island and just figure it out myself. That's the dumb thing to do. Like, I get it maybe 100 years ago where you were out on a ranch in the middle of nowhere with no internet or phone or even a telegraph. Okay, that's your only choice. But now, that is the dumb decision. Right now, you need to plug in and emulate somebody who's successful, somebody who's gained some traction.
Absolutely.
Right? And multiple people, get multiple different perspectives.
How far is the first one, the first place, or the largest Turo dealer from what you have?
They've got 1,200 cars.
Oh, shit.
And they've got multiple locations.
Where are they out of?
California is their main location. And it's a gentleman named Jay Kwan. If you could get a podcast with him, I'll join you. Yeah.
Awesome. And how do you, as you're growing, is it just the whole Phoenix, Tempe, Scottsdale area that you're servicing right now? Or do you look to say, I'm going to start spreading out into these other areas, maybe set up little mobile stations?
I'm 3 years in, but I'm still mastering the art of one location.
Do you have plans to scale it?
There's a lot of things that you can do with our business. One of the big things that we're doing next year is we're getting closer to the airport. Most of our business comes from major airports, so we really should be within vicinities of the airport.
Yeah.
Like, if, as an example, it's 15 minutes for us to get to the airport from here. That means round trip, if you just drove there and back, it's half an hour. We do close to 1,000 reservations a month. Most of them go to the airport.
Gotcha.
Think about the money being spent for employee costs, wear and tear, gas, park, like all that stuff that if we were closer to the airport could be saved. So
yeah. Do you think that's the key for anybody looking to get into Turo, that, airports is probably going to be one of your largest clientele?
Yeah. Well, the key is don't buy cars and then figure out your strategy.
Yeah.
Figure out your strategy and then buy the cars to match it.
Absolutely. Like you said, like moving closer, if I can be closer, it saves me, if I start doing the math, it goes into hundreds of thousands of dollars.
As an example, the most common question that I get with Turo is, what car do I buy? And there's so many different variables involved in that most people just want the simple, go buy this. It's right there. It's at that dealership. Tell them to give them this price. Like, they want the easy answer, but that's checkers, right? If you're going to play big business, you have to learn how to play chess, and you have to think a couple moves ahead, and you have to think that, okay, maybe there's more variables involved instead of just what does a car cost and what is it making?
Yeah.
Maybe it's how much time do I have? How close am I to the airport? What do my customers in this area want? Right? I mean, we don't need to have that many four-wheel drive vehicles. We don't deal with the seasons here.
Yeah.
Some people that have really hard seasons probably shouldn't have Fiat 500s.
Yeah.
Because they don't do good in the snow. So there's a lot of variables that you have to look at. And I don't know where you live. I don't know your financial situation. I don't know how much time you can dedicate to it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know your credit situation. Are you buy it cash? You have to play all these together and go, what's the best strategy for me? The reason why a lot of people fail is they're blind to the strategy that they need to see. And this is why you need a coach to coach you through it, or otherwise you're just going to end up getting into it, making the mistake, and paying the price for it.
Yeah.
But most people go, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to pay for this. I'm not going to invest in that, and I'm just going to learn the hard way.
Do you cater to a lot of athletes and like famous athletes? Have you had that type of clientele, or is that something that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Anybody that?
We've had, you name it, we've had all kinds of people rent from us.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't disclose any
Yeah.
any names for
Yeah.
privacy
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, professional athletes,
Awesome.
actors, anchors, just
I think it's a good way, right, to get in and just have that conversation, and right, you have that relationship because they know you're the guy. They come into town.
Yeah.
You're the guy they can always come see for the, and I'm sure most of them will call you direct sometimes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
yesterday I was at that event. Ryan Stewman was speaking there with Apex, and we got him a car.
Nice.
And so yesterday I'm having conversations with him on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, we're messaging back and forth. So if you have a business and then you're the 1%, you're on the 1% of that business. So you're like the guy, you're the girl, you're the business that people go to for that. Then you create relationships with people and businesses. The highest form of currency is not money.
Yeah.
It's relationships.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I have high caliber people come in, a lot of times I'll just be like, here's the keys. Here's the keys. I know that they can pay for it, but I value the relationship more than the money. I value the relationship more than the transaction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it creates that long-lasting transaction.
Yeah.
Forever.
And then I'm now the guy.
Yeah.
And so find a business that you want to be in, and look, you don't even have to be the owner of a business. I almost recommend for most people, like, why would you want to own a business when you can be number 2, make really good money, and not
have the stress,
have the worry of being sued or going bankrupt or not having any money for payroll? Like, just find something that you like to do.
Yeah.
Be dead set on being the best, right? I call it scaling, because scaling is what will make me the best, right? Or it's going to be different for whatever industry you're in. You know, if it's an athlete, it's being the strongest or the fastest or whatever it is. But creating this idea of being the best, going after it every day, you're naturally going to fall into the 1%ers. And then, like we talked about at the beginning of this, then you got to get back. And what's cool is a lot of time, I heard a really good saying, success is getting what you want. Fulfillment is giving what you have.
That's deep. Yeah.
So once you figure it out, and a lot of times the people who figure it out and then give it back, they find that's where they end up making most of their money.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, like, the future is? And I'm going to ask you, like, because I'm a futurist, and I'm a big fan of like Peter Diamandis and people like this that are working on like crazy projects. What do you think the future of flying cars are?
I mean, hard to say. I mean, if you think about 100 years ago today, was the 20s, right? There was no cell phone. There was no internet. Cars really weren't there, right?
Yeah.
And if you were to ask all those people, hey, what do you think about flying at 700 miles an hour up in the air? They would have said, what? Are you crazy? What do you think about talking to somebody on the other side of the globe in real time on a phone? They go, what? Are you crazy? So you can't disqualify anything. I'd like to see it. I'm a pilot. So, I mean, it would be nice. Nobody likes sitting in traffic. Yeah. So that would be nice. I think what would be even better is if it could be like Star Trek, where we just go like that, and then we're in our house, you know, and there was no having to transport and the time to transport.
Yeah.
Or the risk involved with transportation, you know, because a lot of people die every year off of plane crashes, car crashes.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I'm excited about, you know, when it comes to the new technology, just because of the automatic braking, the automatic lane assist, stuff like that. That's a lot better. But I do think at one point we're going to get, I know Uber Air has been working on the drone and taking people from rooftops and taking like, you know, so I think that's probably going to hit first. You know, I know they've been going back and forth with the FAA as far as like airspace and, you know, at what altitude they can fly and stuff like that. But I think that's where we're going to start. There are some smaller projects that I saw that are like one man, like drone that do pretty well. So I was curious to know if that was to happen. Do you think you would see yourself getting into renting something like that?
Yeah, you just got to pivot.
Yeah.
So I'm not stuck on the way we do business right now.
Yeah.
You have to follow the market. You have to pivot, you know. Absolutely. So it's that's not something that's a light switch where tomorrow they're going to go, okay, all cars are flying tomorrow. If you don't have a flying car, you don't get to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So as it happens, you just pivot and adjust. And so, look, there's more electric cars nowadays. Who knows what's going to happen with cars? Like, we could be the generation where we're talking to our grandkids and we're like, yeah, in my day, we used to get in this little machine and turn an ignition on.
Yeah.
And this thing would fire up and then we would drive.
Yeah.
And they'll look at us like we're crazy. Like, what?
Yeah, Elon Musk is talking about, like in his book, he talked about he wanted to do a vehicle with no steering wheel, no pedals.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, it would save a lot of lives. It'd be a lot more convenient. So I wouldn't doubt in our generation if they come up with vehicles and we're not allowed to drive.
Yeah.
We have to put in a destination and it will take us somewhere.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that happening I can see that getting passed through the government and mandating it on cars to where unless you're on private property, you have to, kind of like with airplanes flying IFR, like they tell you exactly where you have to go and when you can do it.
Yeah, and they're going to track everything. You're going to be able to track where you went, what happened, to break everything down.
There's a scary side to technology, but there's a lot of good that can come from it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you into have you looked into like Neuralink or any of these other companies that are anything like that where they're putting in like chips and
no.
Yeah, that's also another scary thing where they're kind of like changing the way people, that they're going to be able to control some stuff with your mind. It's crazy shit, man.
I'm not a big fan of altering the human experience.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, but we'll see what happens here in the future. But I do believe if Elon Musk is behind it, man, there's going to be he's going to push the limits. Yeah. Do you think we'll ever, with what he's doing, do you think he will get to Mars?
It's pure speculation. I have no idea.
Yeah.
If I were to ask him, hey, do you want to go to Mars? And he says, yeah, I'm going to do it. I wouldn't doubt him.
Yeah.
If he said before
that's his whole, that's the reason why he got into
I wouldn't doubt it.
The SpaceX and everything was his goal. Like when everybody's celebrating about them doing 25 missions and he's just like down in a corner and they're like, what's going on, Elon? He's like, we're just not there yet.
Yeah. Because he's the type of guy that's fueled off of people telling him he can't do something.
Yeah.
Right. Stretching the impossible. So if it's something that he's said he wants to do and people are giving criticism for it, I'm sure it's going to happen.
So what was the first car you owned?
A Ford Tempo.
Ford Tempo.
Mm-hmm. You closed the door and there was I don't know if you've ever seen a car with seat belts that are automatic. Have you ever heard of that? I don't think I've ever seen another car that did this.
No.
But you open the door and the seatbelt goes on a track, and then you close the door and it goes and it goes on.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
It's like the only car
Ford Tempo
I've ever
used
seen
to have it. It was up towards the top and it rolled on a rail, right? And
so it was a hand-me-down from my mom, and that was my first car.
Base model. It wasn't like the.
I'm sure there was nothing special about those cars. Yeah.
What color was it?
It was gray.
Gray. Ford Tempo. I haven't heard that in a while.
Cloth interior. I don't think I've seen a Tempo since then.
Yeah. They used to heat up a lot, right?
So they must not have been very reliable because that's why we don't see them anymore.
Yeah. So. I always ask that question because I'm really interested of, like the cars that people bring up, but especially you. I mean, now that you've got all these, what's life like now that you own some of these vehicles and stuff like that? Like I know this one, when I drove this one, like it turns a lot of heads and people are just constantly.
Yeah.
I
love cars in a weird way. Like, I don't love cars because I want to drive around and look flashy. I drive cars because they're a piece of art to me. Like these cars behind, like the design work, the engineering, the artists that put a car like this together is like, I have a lot of respect for that. So like, I just sit in a car like that's unique and rare and I just appreciate it and enjoy it. And I got into cars because my mom worked for a doctor and she couldn't afford childcare. So I was literally in the parking garage while she worked. And the doctor that she worked for had a 360 Modena Ferrari.
Oh, nice.
And this was the one where in the back there's a piece of glass over the engine. And I was so mesmerized that like, wait a minute, why is the engine in the back? And why is it that I can see it? And it really started my fascination with cars. He came out one day and he's like, oh, hey, well, what are you doing? He's like, oh, here, come sit in it. And I sat in it, and I was probably like 5, 6 years old, and I remember it like it was yesterday. So we have kids especially will come in here all the time and check out cars, and it's like, it's unlocked, go in and take a picture.
That's awesome.
Right? So sharing the cars, like giving people the experience of, because a lot of people, like, they're not going to drop $250,000 on a car.
What got you into the whole thing of like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy my first exotic car? What was it? Because I know you started more with you say you started with five vehicles
look,
and stuff.
So my 20s, I was money. I'm just going to keep it real. Like, I wanted to make a ton of money. I wanted to live on the hill. I wanted the red Ferrari. Like, I wanted money.
Yeah.
And it's like what's his name? What's that boxer? Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
He says, be careful what you ask for, because God just might give it to you.
Yeah.
Well, he gave it to all me. So, I love the cars. They're cool, but these cars are business assets, right? So one of the big things with TuroHost is you can't be emotionally attached to your cars.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to go out, they're going to get scraped, they're going to get dinged, they're going to get a broken windshield. Like, they're going to wreck every once in a while.
I saw you shared a story about how somebody stole the T-top off of one of the Corvettes or something like that. What's one of the things that has happened? Like, one of the things that you're just like, oh my God, that came out of left field, man. Like, I didn't even think that was possible.
Like, there's some people who will rent Turo cars because something happened with their car, and they'll rent the Turo car to take the part off your car.
Oh man. Crazy.
So, I mean, there's just some weird things that people do. Or we'll have cars that people use for illegal things. There's a lot of wild stories. You're going to have a wild story with any business, but with Turo, we just have wild stories, wild customers. For the most part, though, especially with exotic cars, you get some really, really cool clientele.
Cool.
They take care of the cars.
Yeah.
They appreciate it. They appreciate the experience, right? Not having to spend $250,000 themselves to have the experience of driving a really nice car.
Yeah.
It's fun to see pictures that we get on, Google and our social media, people like enjoying the cars, like it's the car for their wedding, that'll forever be a part of their memory.
Oh, absolutely.
Or a date night, or this one lady came in and she wanted to get a really nice car for her father. And surprised him, and like the look on his face. Like, there's some really cool stories, and then you got some really horror stories. So
I think that's good. I think sharing those type of stories, I think too, are engaging, like bring people closer to what you're doing. We try to do that, and we try to share, like they call it, I guess it would be similar to like a testimonial, but those kind of things like, okay, I came and got this vehicle because, when I was this kid, I used to play with a Hot Wheel, and it was that same exact vehicle or something to that effect, man. So what's this significance of this vehicle here that you brought out?
So this is my grandfather's toy car when he was little.
Wow.
And he actually had about 20 of these, and the rest of them are at my house, but this one I have where I can see it when I'm sitting at my desk.
Yeah.
For me, my grandfather was that guy in our family that was like the example for our family.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I aspire to be in my family. So it's just a good representation for me of like being, the type of man that he was. And it's just cool to know that like when he was little, he was playing.
That's badass.
Yeah.
And then the quality of it too, it's like all metal, right?
Yeah. If you look at this, it's crazy how much time they put into making a quality, and this is a kid's toy.
Yeah.
Like, you get kids' toys now, and I got 2 little girls, 5 and 8. Like, the kids' toys we get nowadays, plastic. It's broken in 30 seconds. This was made to last forever.
Are you a collector? Do you collect any other things, or is it just the vehicles? Or
I'll go through phases of collecting things, but right now I'm not really on any particular thing.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's cool. Anything else on the Turo thing that you think that's really important for people to know about Turo, or something that you think are misconceptions that people have of Turo that you think that would be helpful for people like that are listening to this podcast saying, how can I get into Turo? I know you mentioned the classes, the mastermind, getting a coach, going through that process. What are other things you think that'll be really helpful for somebody getting started?
Just dive into YouTube. I think just have an open mind and look at it and see if it's a good opportunity for you and it's something that you really want to engage in. It's a big commitment, you know, because you're getting car loans into your name, you're, you know, acquiring co-hosts and gathering their cars, and they're trusting you to make money off their cars. So it's a big commitment. There's a lot of green pastures in it if you do it right.
Is there any training directly from Turo that you can get?
Zero.
Okay. So you don't have a relationship there.
There's nothing.
Gotcha.
It is, and this is really what made me create this course, is because I've seen so many people, like good people, like you can be a good person with good intentions, get into a business and fail. Like it's just the risk that we take being an entrepreneur. So I've seen a couple of really good people fail at Turo. And you also see a ton of stuff online of people negative talking Turo, when the reality is they just made one mistake.
Yeah.
And had they not made that mistake, their video would be, you got to join Turo. It's amazing. You're going to make so much money.
Yeah.
So the reason why I started this mastermind and we created this course and we're doing all this stuff is to create engagement with other hosts, to say, hey, look, we're not enemies here. We're all doing the same thing. Let's figure out how to do it the most efficient way possible. Let's learn from each other's mistakes. Let's learn from each other's successes so that we don't all have to touch the same fire. So so far it's working amazing.
Are you the only one doing masterminds right now on Turo? Because I haven't seen any other.
There's a couple of people that are doing it, but really it's few and far between, and there's some that shouldn't be that are.
Yeah.
You know, so just make sure that if you're going to learn from somebody, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they have receipts. And if they don't, then you really should find somebody that does have it figured out so that you can learn the right way to do it. And I'm certainly not saying that I know the right way and it's the only way to do it. But obviously we're doing something that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not around for 3 years, get the reviews that we have and build a business like we have on accident.
Are you still doing other businesses, or is this your only?
Yeah, I still have another marketing agency where we sell ADT security. So,
nice.
I do have other businesses. Yeah.
Awesome. And how is it to navigate? I mean, it's a headache to even do one. We're trying to do a second one as well too, but it's difficult. Even being out here, having multiple locations is even difficult. Yeah. So how do you balance that?
Well, I mean,
you spend like 50-50.
Yeah, you have to strategize.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to, one, make sure that it's smart, right? Because jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You know, one takes away from the other. Like, you could end up failing at both if you don't give them the proper attention that they need. So you really just have to make the determination of, can I do both?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people hear this multiple streams of income thing. And so they think, oh, okay, well, I'm 20 years old. I got to get these multiple streams of income. No. Like, once you become the 1% in your industry, or you get an exit from a company, or you've mastered something, then you can venture off. Then you can use the spoils of that to venture off into other things.
Yeah.
But until then, find one thing, be the best at it, and go destroy the market.
Yeah, I used to have other owners tell me, Raul, you need to focus on just your business, man. You got to leave your job, focus on this. Until you do that, at that point, then you'll take your business to the next level. They were absolutely right. Like, the day that I did that, things started to change. We started to scale. Yeah. Things started to really grow. So I really, truly believe in that. Any tips or any advice that you would have for young entrepreneurs that are just getting into business, like as far as things that if you look back and you could have done it again, that you would have done better?
One, be okay with being tortured. Literally tortured, mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, understand that that's not part of it. It's a requirement. Like, I've read a lot of books of successful entrepreneurs, like autobiographies. Not one of them, even in Hollywood, when we watch, how boring would a movie be where it's just like, yeah, I'm the hero and I just beat everybody up and then I win. There's always all this crap that happens to them, right? That makes the movie entertaining. Well, guess what? Your life is going to be entertaining. If you choose to be an entrepreneur or you just choose you want to make it in life, there's going to be opposition.
Absolutely.
And so if know that, and 2, put things in the proper perspective. All right. A lot of us think that if we hit a wall that it means stop. Right. I got really lucky in sales where I ended up in door-to-door sales where you literally and figuratively get your teeth kicked in all day.
Yeah.
You are dealing with objections.
Yeah.
You're dealing with rejections. You're dealing with harsh criticism all day. And it really calloused my mind to go, I'm not doing it for that person. I'm doing it for that one family that wants to protect their home, that wants to protect their family. Like, I'm doing it for them.
Yeah.
Right? And focus on that. So perspective would probably be the other piece of it.
And if you can give them one book to read to get started, what would that one book be?
So I'm a huge reader, so I'm going to give you a list.
Okay.
Right? Because we talked about Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
It's a must read.
Absolutely.
It's a difficult book to read. It's one of those, like, you know how you read a book and you read a page and you realize, I didn't get any of that. My head was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, you have to read this book slow.
Yeah.
Because there's like a sentence here and a sentence there where if you get it, it will literally change your life. So I keep 10 copies of Think and Grow Rich at my house and at my office, and I literally hand them out to people. It is the Bible of personal development.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So Think and Grow Rich. Atomic Habits by James Clear is amazing as well. I'm big into Stoicism. And so there's a lot of books on Stoicism that you can get into. Psycho-Cybernetics is another good book that illustrates the secret. Tim Grover's book, Winning and Relentless, are both very, very good. So in this day and age, go on to Amazon and type in best books for blank. I want to be an entrepreneur, best books for entrepreneur, right? And you surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. And yesterday, they talked about 2 books. So we spent the whole day at the Lion's Den yesterday. Andy Elliott talked about 1 book, and Ryan Stewman talked about 1 book during their approach. I was taking notes. The second they talked about the book, I bought it, and it's on Amazon. I'll probably have it by the time I get home today. I have a pending section in my library of books, and I read 20 pages a day. So
physical books?
Yeah,
you do
I do not do ebooks. I do physical books because I want to be able to
highlight.
There's something about
with the connection.
Being in, if you go to my office in there, and especially if you go to my office in my house, 3 of my walls are lined with books. There's something about being in the presence of actual books, not just the stuff that you read from them, but like being in the actual presence of books. Like, I just feel smarter.
Absolutely.
And dedicate yourself to 20 pages a day. It's non-negotiable. I don't care what time I get home. I don't care how tired I am. I don't care how horrible of a day I had. 20 pages. You will be surprised how many times you'll read a book that has nothing to do with what you think is going on in your head right now. And you go, that totally relates to what I'm doing right now. Right? So it happens a lot with the Bible. When people are religious, they're like looking for an answer for something. They'll open up a book and they're talking about history of a civilization, but you're like, oh, that totally applies to what I'm talking about right now.
Absolutely.
You're dealing with books that the best of generations prior to us wrote and left to us. You're an idiot not to read it. You are literally an idiot. Like, why would you waste all of that knowledge? Like, I soak in 20 pages of content every single day.
Yeah.
And because of that, most people in business, I smoke them just from reading. If it was just that one thing that you did, that you changed, just read 20 pages a day and watch what happens.
I can see, man. I mean, I look back 10 years, I'm a completely different person just by reading. Mm-hmm. So I'm a huge believer. I dipped in. The second book I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I doubled my salary right off the bat. Within that, I was a believer after that, man. I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in.
2 things happen. 1, you get the actual knowledge from the book, right? But if you want to play into what we're talking about as a secret, right? Not only do I get the knowledge from the book, but I literally feel like I have permission to win because I've read while other people didn't.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm attracting good things to me because I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely.
When we do the things that we know we're not supposed to do, you slowly erode away your self-confidence.
And you're prepared, right?
95% of my day I spend doing things I don't necessarily want to do, but I know I have to do to keep the momentum, to keep my confidence, to keep my drive up, to keep my head straight, They're just things that, like you talked about, I'm learning how to do this, and this serves me and this and that. Like, find your zen in a perfect day, and know that your perfect day is going to be a majority of pain. The more pain I go through in the day, the happier I am. When I do 75 hard, like, it's miserable. I went to bed at like 2 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
Because that's how long it took for me to get my stuff done. Well, I'm extremely happy.
Yeah.
You know when I'm not happy is when I'm eating the things I shouldn't be eating. When I'm not going to the gym, I'm not pushing myself at work, I'm not being a good husband, I'm not being a good father. When I'm just kind of going through the motions. Yeah. That's where people are getting messed up nowadays.
Didn't Mike Tyson say discipline is doing the things that you don't want to do, but doing
Acting
them like you
love it.
Yeah, right. I love that too, man. I get in, I'm like, all right, let's get it. I'll be talking to myself like David Goggins and shit, running like, who's going to carry the boats?
By the way, he's got 2 really good books too, David Goggins.
Yeah, I read both of them. I love them.
Can't Hurt Me and, I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but they're both really good.
Yeah, I just finished, I read it like 3 titles back, his latest book. I'm trying to think of the title as well. I think that You Can't Hurt Me was the last one, right?
No, You Can't Hurt Me is the first one. It's got the cover with him in the Navy SEAL suit.
Yeah.
But he talks about getting beat up and just going for
Love it.
Right?
Eat it up.
It's not a fairy tale.
Yeah. Smile and enjoy it, man. Yeah. We're alive. We're blessed. So Brandon, I want to thank you, man. I know I've taken a lot of your time.
No,
I appreciate you having me and my team here.
Of course. It was a pleasure.
Your place is amazing. Inspiring. Hearing your words today, I know why we connected. Like, it just makes sense, man. That's why I'm smiling about that situation, because it just makes sense, man, that positive attracts another positive. And, you shared a lot of golden nuggets today for people on Turo, and also talked about just personal growth. So I appreciate you taking time to share that with us. And I hope that even if and our goal here is, even if we can inspire one person, man, we've done our job. So I appreciate you taking the time, appreciate you having our team, and thank you for always accepting us and allowing us to rent some of your vehicles.
You guys are welcome here anytime. Right. Thanks for being a great customer and enjoyed the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brandon.